I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Harrison Uffindell. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
Yeah, I'm going well, thanks. It's actually my daytime, and it's a beautiful blue sky.
That's good. What part of the world are you in right now?
So I'm in Sydney. It's a relatively hot sort of 30 degrees, and I'm actually about to head out to the airport, flying to San Francisco, which is going to be cold and foggy. So that's all right.
Well, it's good to connect with you. You sound as though you're around the cafe right now. Rather busy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So hopefully you can hear me fine. But
Yeah.
I'm just sort of in between lunch, and there's a bit going on around me, but it should be okay.
Yeah, definitely. We're hearing you clearly. This is cool. Well, do tell us, Harrison, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting at this time?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I mean, maybe I could throw that one back at you, but I guess I've had a bit of a mixed background, whether it's sort of my own startup, or working for a few other technology companies, or more recently starting my own podcast.
There we go. Podcast.
Yeah,
bing, 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 bing.
things.
Yeah, tell us about your podcast.
So my podcast is called Growth Engineer. So it was a podcast to interview local founders, entrepreneurs, and investors, and really sort of dive into their personal journey and their career, but really sort of focusing on how to build scalable and sustainable growth in their companies. So whether it's a first-time founder, or a serial entrepreneur, or a local angel or venture capitalist, we sort of like go through and talk through their journey and lessons I've learned along the way. And I guess the reason I started it, there was probably two main reasons. One, it was actually a really nice excuse to get to chat to really interesting people that otherwise I might not have had the privilege of sitting in a room with one-on-one for half an hour or an hour. So it was a good way to meet a lot of really great people. But also I found when I had those conversations, even before the podcast, there was always a lot of knowledge there that I'd try retain and I'd write down a note, but I couldn't always necessarily pass it on. So recording these conversations is a really good way to, well, I hope is a good way to sort of pass on some of their knowledge to the wider community as well.
Now, you sound as though you are a strategist, right? Like you're definitely strategic in your thinking, in your actions. Who did you learn that skill from?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think I'm strategic in my thinking, and there's a few, I guess, influences over my life, and all the time I'm sort of revisiting sort of what my goals are, and and what my sort of, I guess, my personal sort of plan and vision is. And I wouldn't put it down to, it'd be hard to put it down to one particular influence, but I think for me what's been pretty powerful is actually spending the time, which very few people do, surprisingly enough, to sit down and really think, what do I want to achieve, and what are my goals, and actually go a bit deeper, like, why do I want this goal? If it's, a career-based one or a personal-based one, sort of what's the underlying reason behind it? And I think just actually spending that time and getting really good clarity on, what you want to do and where you want to go, it makes the choices a lot easier, and more importantly, it makes it easy to say no to a lot of things as well. So yeah, like it's a journey, and my goals and things, they'll keep changing, but I like to think I sort of sit down and spend a bit more time thinking about them than I used to.
Now, this is something that you could have done for 30 years, where you jumped in a job, right, like an engineer, all right, and done the 30 years where you're pretty active. Now that you're doing this model where you're reflecting consistently, why will you continue to repeat that skill, which can be a bit challenging, couldn't it? Can't it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. It is challenging. I think so the CEO that I worked under for this company called Tilt, James Bashera, I remember in my very first day, we did this video call, and he asked a pretty direct question, which is, what do you want in life? And at the outset, you ramble off if you haven't really put a lot of thought into it, you ramble off just what people expect you to say. Really, I want maybe financial security. I want to do this. I want to be happy and healthy, friends, relationships, and you sort of list all these generic things off. And then he started asking, why? Like, why do you want to be, happy? And sort of, I guess, air quotes. If you take a happy pill and be happy every day, would you not want to do this? And the point of it's not to find the answer, but I think the point for me was just, it's a really important question to figure out what you want in life and actually spend that time sitting down and thinking about, what you actually want it and why you think you want it is important. And I was actually one of the influencers, Tony Hsieh, who I believe was the co-founder of Zappos or CEO of Zappos, the famous shoe retailer. He's got some really interesting thoughts on happiness. Their whole company's been based around delivering happiness, and that's one of the titles of his book. And so I found reading a bit of his work and a few of his blogs really interesting, and some of those questions that and the way he approaches happiness. So yeah.
Yeah, tell me one other thing that you've done, Harrison, consistently over the last 3 years.
So one thing that I've done, and this is pretty nerdy, to be honest, but I remember reading Reid Hoffman's book, the founder of LinkedIn. The book was The Startup of You, and I can't remember every detail, obviously, but one of the core messages that I took from the book anyway was, you should really treat yourself, like a startup. You want to be growing. Ideally, if you're in a slow job and you're not really learning much, you might be growing, 10% year over year, but really you want to be like a small business or a startup and growing 50% or 100% year over year. And so that sort of stuck with me, and the idea of actually really holding yourself accountable, much like a startup would, having these goals, but also having the metrics so you can keep yourself honest and accountable. And so from that, I built a bit of a practice of having my sort of key vision and goals, and then actually breaking them down into measurable, and into metrics that I can basically assess and rate myself. So, I keep basically a fortnightly ritual of looking at what I've done that past sort of fortnight, if I've achieved the things I've wanted to, and almost give myself a bit of a measurement to see how I'm tracking for the year. And I feel like there's a lot of New Year's resolutions and a lot of goals people have, but it makes a really big difference when you actually even just have it in a basic spreadsheet. And, whether it's books that you want to read, or say if it's health related, if you're looking after your health, both mental and physical, I found a really effective way of keeping yourself honest is really treating yourself like a business and tracking your metrics and actually spending that time thinking about it.
Love it. Well, amazing audience, you are hearing it live here from Harrison Uffindell. And again, he is the podcast host of Growth Engineer. You could definitely connect with that. Check that out. Harrison, let's switch gears for a moment now, and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Harrison, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Oh, earliest childhood memory. I think my earliest childhood memory was probably playing in the backyard with my older brother. I'm originally a New Zealander, so there was never a shortage of either cricket bats and cricket balls, or most likely a rugby ball or two being kicked around. And he was 6 years older, so I was sort of I'd try and play along with him and his friends, and usually end up crying and running to mum. But I think that was sort of my earliest memory in the backyard playing with my siblings.
Why do you think this memory is so clear, and how do you see it connecting to who you are today?
I don't know. I'd say the reason why it's clear, I'm obviously my relationship, my family's super important to me, and being a New Zealander, I've got a pretty strong tie to rugby. We're all majority of us are a pretty strong sort of rugby, diehard rugby and All Blacks supporters. But I think how it relates to who I am today, I think sport was really useful in that it ingrained a sense of sort of competitiveness and drive in me. And although I may have not turned out as a professional as probably what I was dreaming of as a younger kid, I think there's a lot of really great lessons which I took from sport and still sort of carry with me, even though the physical side I probably wouldn't back myself on a rugby field anymore.
Well, hey, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Please.
I think it's really necessary to understand that while some people learn in a team format, or like in a group format, if you would, it's really intriguing to see some of us who do learn individually. To see you going and running back inside to your mom, but having the opportunity to internalize and now understand who you are and grow stronger as a result of that is pretty intriguing to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we fast forwarded to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
My favorite song when I was 12? Oh, that's I'm not sure. I think there was, at the time, I remember Nelly was probably one of the biggest names. I think he had just released his album. There was a Country Grammar, I remember, was one of the hit songs at the time. Yeah. And and I think Ja Rule was actually pretty big at this time. So I think it was sort of when R&B was at its peak, and sort of a bit of hip hop. So I think that was probably the song that I think of when I think of being 12. But I guess my music taste, probably haven't listened to R&B in about 10 years, but I think I've got a pretty wide sort of music taste. So probably not R&B, but yeah.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Harrison?
Go for it.
Harrison, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yeah.
Are you married?
No.
Do you have children?
No.
Do you believe in God?
No.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yes.
What about
yes,
screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Yeah, some days more, some days less.
If you had to share with us, Harrison, your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, what would you say that is?
It's tough. I mean, I like to think that my sort of calling and what I want to do is help, build and foster entrepreneurship, especially in my local country, New Zealand, and where I'm living now, Australia. So, I think what I encourage people to do on this, sorry to give a long-winded answer, but I love the idea of just really, taking a risk, being comfortable with failure and giving things a go and not staying comfortable.
Well, there we go. Harrison, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, I mean, I'd just like to say, thank you very much for, reaching out and including me. I love what you're doing, and I'm really interested to see how it continues to evolve and listen to some of the other amazing podcasts. And also, thank you for very kindly plugging my podcast, Growth Engineer, in there as well. And to the audience, if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can search Harrison Uffindell or Growth Engineer, and feel free to email me or contact me directly.
Love it. Harrison Uffindell, thank you, my friend, for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.